Hello, everyone. Today, I'm bringing you a famous American ethical thriller, Unfaithful. Connie's family lives in a small villa in Wada. This is the first year of Connie's marriage to her husband, Edward. They have an 8-year-old son, Charlie, who's mischievous but sensible. Edward runs a company, and their family is quite well off, a typical middle-class family. Like every morning, Connie prepares breakfast for the family, reminds her husband about his inside-out shirt, and helps her son with brushing his teeth and washing his face. Edward complains about not buying a certain stock, and Charlie dirties the toilet. Life is filled with small, insignificant troubles. But overall, it's happy. It's an unusually windy day. As they leave, Edward suggests Connie stay home, but she boards the train to the city for an auction and Charlie's birthday gift. Connie is used to the long journey, but the wind causes trouble, making it hard to catch a cab back. Connie stumbles along. Walking into an alley, a man holding books appears at the end. Amidst the chaos, they get closer, as if an invisible force pulls them together, resulting in a tumble. The man grumbles a bit, then helps Connie pick up her things while she helps him gather his scattered books. She asks him to help her get a cab, but in this terrible weather, no cab stops. Connie is amused by the man's frustrated look. He jokes about the weather, notices Connie's knee injury, and points to a house with flower pots, suggesting they go upstairs to treat her wound. The man holding his books enters the building, jokingly assuring Connie he's not a serial killer. As a cab passes by, Connie turns and follows the man upstairs. The elevator, probably out of order for a decade, is broken. The man curses and leads Connie up the stairs. It's a house filled with books. The man is a bookseller. As he takes off his coat, he points Connie to the medicine cabinet and bathroom, smiling a bit cheekily as he's a stranger. In the stranger's home, Connie locks the bathroom door, accidentally knocking over a medicine bottle. She suppresses her nausea, retrieves the bottle from the toilet, and navigates through the maze. The man has already brewed tea waiting for her, noticing a punching. Back in the living room, Connie asks if he's a boxer. He explains it's a friend's house, and the friend is in Paris, while he runs a book business here. Connie, who rarely stays out late, decides to call home to avoid worrying her son. The man quietly approaches, startling Connie as he places an ice pack on her injured knee. After hanging up, Connie tells the man she has a son turning 9. The man introduces himself as Paul Martel, about to turn 28. After exchanging pleasantries, Connie bids farewell, but Martel stops her, offering a book as a keepsake. Connie, initially hesitant, follows Martel's guidance to a bookshelf, retrieves the book, and reads a passage. The moment is your life. Their eyes meet, and the atmosphere becomes ambiguous. Connie reiterates her departure, but accidentally enters the man's bedroom. Embarrassed, she changes direction at Martel's reminder. Connie rushes to the station and returns home. Her son Charlie immediately notices her knee injury. Connie says she fell, and Charlie excitedly grabs a camera, saying it's for a school project. Connie plays along, pretending to be in pain. When Edward returns, Charlie eagerly shows his photos. Learning about Connie's injury, Edward asks with concern. Connie mentions a kind person helped her. Confirming she's fine, Edward jokes, asking if the person was handsome. Connie laughs, and neither seems too concerned. At night, Connie emerges from the bathroom, finding Edward fiddling with a new camcorder. She sits on his lap, and the mood heats up until Charlie calls. From the next room, Edward puts on his pants and goes to comfort their sleepless son. The next day, after sending Charlie off, Connie finds the book from the kind person, and a business card falls out. Connie picks it up. With no one else around, Connie instinctively glances at her pet dog, silently watching her. She heads to the bustling station, drops a coin into a payphone, and hangs up, torn with indecision. After a mental struggle, Connie finally decides to make the call, only to hear an automated response. Unable to hide her disappointment, just as she's about to hang up, a man's voice comes through. Connie is instantly delighted, politely expressing her gratitude. The man directly invites her over for coffee. Almost as if guided by fate, Connie finds herself at Martel's home again. Wearing a coat, she hesitates at the entrance until Martel offers to help her with her coat, his fingers intentionally brushing her alluring neck. Connie nervously states she can't stay long, as if telling Martel, but more like telling herself. Meanwhile, Martel clumsily spills hot coffee, and they share a mutual, distracted understanding. When Martel notices Connie's interest in a book on the table, he seizes the opportunity to hold her hand. After a brief flirtation, Connie hurriedly leaves, returning to her husband. Seeing Connie, Edward instinctively leaves the office space for them. Connie buys Edward a sweater. Though puzzled, Edward puts it on. However, the brief warmth is soon interrupted by a work call. After dinner, Connie absent-mindedly washes dishes, her mind elsewhere. Her husband approaches, but she remains oblivious. The Frenchman knows how to flirt, and Connie gradually loses her resistance. Suddenly, the music stops, jolting Connie awake, and she quickly grabs her bag and coat, closing the door behind her. Martel bitterly kicks the bag on the floor. Just then, the door reopens, and Martel embraces Connie, who returns for her coat, losing the chance to leave. Perhaps as he wished, on the train home, Connie is animated by the exchanged moments. A violent impulse stirring her primal desires, mixed with guilt, leaving her restless. Amidst complex emotions, Connie experiences unprecedented pleasure. The train finally stops by the sea, with undercurrents surging beneath the surface. Hours later, Edward, returning home by train, coincidentally meets a friend, an employee at the auction house Connie often visits. The previous day, Connie used the excuse of discussing auction items with this person to go out. But the friend says he just returned from a business trip and hasn't seen Connie in a while. Hearing this, Edward is momentarily stunned. After dinner, Edward suddenly asks Connie about her day. Noticing Edward's unusual behavior, Connie repeatedly assures him of her love. Edward doesn't pursue further. Questions. Before leaving the study, Connie nervously turns off the wrong light. In the dark, she looks at the love token Edward gave her years ago, lost in thought. Perhaps she's beginning to doubt who she truly loves. Connie secretly continues her affair with Martel, but it doesn't affect her happy family life. She can't give up either. At this moment, she's still managing both. One day, Connie and Martel meet at an outdoor cafe, a change from their usual home rendezvous. Connie is tense. To ease her nerves, Martel proposes a bet. He points to a pair of office workers fighting over the bill, saying if the person on the right pays, they'll leave. If the person on the left gets the bill, he'll kiss Connie. Before she can refuse, the man on the left successfully grabs the bill. Martel gently kisses Connie. The man who got the bill turns around, revealing a familiar face. Edward's subordinate, Bill. At this moment, Bill doubts his eyes, seeing his boss's wife intimately close with a stranger. Together. As he exits, Bill instinctively looks back, confirming the sight of the two together. Bill quietly leaves without revealing anything, while Connie and Martel, immersed in their world, remain oblivious. Such a coincidental encounter seems to suggest that every path leaves traces. While showering, Connie discovers a small mark Martel drew on her. Fortunately, she cleans it off before her husband notices. Edward turns off the light, leaving only the bathtub, wanting to be intimate with Connie. However, Connie refuses. The next day, Edward invites Connie to dinner again, but she uses a salon appointment as an excuse. Yet, her high heels and dress hint at her true destination. Despite Connie's evasions, Edward chooses to remain silent. Later, Edward discreetly calls the salon, receiving the expected answer: they have no appointment for Connie. At this moment, Connie is just a few flights of stairs away from the person she longs for, but an old friend she hasn't seen in years stops her. In March, Connie enters a cafe, and the first thing she does is call Martel, telling him she's stuck. Soon, Martel arrives at the cafe, and they share a knowing look. Connie then follows Martel to the restroom. After leaving her seat, her friends can't help but praise Connie's radiant appearance. After the passion, Connie returns to her friends, jokingly saying they thought she was kidnapped by a handsome guy, referring to Martel at the bar. The conversation shifts to affairs, with one friend jokingly encouraging it, while another suddenly becomes serious, warning Connie that all affairs end in tragedy. After the gathering, Connie rushes to Martel's home, knowing that someone will inevitably get hurt in this relationship, but she's already too deep. Meanwhile, Edward faces a crisis, discovering his subordinate Bill. Edward, secretly negotiating with a competitor for a job switch, preemptively ended his employment. Furious, Bill lashed out, hinting that Edward should care more about his family. Edward, realizing the truth he had been avoiding, hired 4 detectives to follow up. During dinner, Edward suddenly mentioned firing Bill for irresponsibility, hinting at something more. Connie, unaware of the affair, was already on shaky ground. After another tryst, she forgot to pick up her son, Charlie, from school, feeling guilty. Edward, under the guise of a business trip, obtained photos of Connie and Martel. On a rainy day, Connie inexplicably drove to Martel's place, witnessing him with another woman. Martel entered the library with a girl. In the pouring rain, Connie followed, witnessing their intimacy through the shelves. Losing her mind, she confronted Martel, realizing he had other lovers. Furious, she ended their relationship, but the elevator malfunctioned. As she tried to leave, Martel caught her. Despite her anger, she couldn't resist the passion. After leaving, an unexpected visitor arrived at Martel's. Edward, revealing his identity, faced Martel, who understood the situation. Unsure of Edward's intentions, Martel let him in, surveying the room, while Martel kept his distance, offering vodka. Edward accepted, questioning their relationship. The young man was the kind stranger Connie met on a stormy day. A silent battle ensued, with Edward probing for details of their affair. Martel, unyielding, claimed Connie was happier here than in the suburbs. Learning his wife discussed their son and him with her lover, Edward felt at a disadvantage, growing despondent. What truly broke him was finding the crystal ball he gifted Connie on Martel's nightstand, questioning why she gave it to her lover. It was an answer he dreaded. Connie chose fleeting passion over past love and duty. Overwhelmed, Edward's vision blurred, and he impulsively smashed the crystal ball on Martel's head. Blood flowed, and Edward, horrified, realized Martel was dead. As sanity returned, he cleaned the crime scene. A voicemail from Connie, ending things with Martel, played. Edward, not stopping, cleaned up, wrapped Martel's body in a carpet, and planned to use the elevator. Before leaving, he deleted Connie's message, overlooking a memo with her name and number. During the body disposal, the elevator malfunctioned again. In a burst of strength, Edward lifted the body, hiding it in the trunk amidst the storm. Meanwhile, Connie, anxious, arrived early at Charlie's school. At the recital, she held Edward's hand, feeling bittersweet happiness. Afterward, they split up, Edward taking Richard home, while Connie stayed to clean. As they left, a loud noise came from the trunk. Edward, ignoring the cause, hastily closed it, ready to drive off. The other driver insisted on checking the car, and Edward, uncharacteristically angry, scared Charlie. Edward quickly drove away. Late at night, he ensured Connie was asleep, then drove to a landfill. Leaving the stench behind, he went to a car wash, watching the foam rinse away, hoping to cleanse his guilt. With the rival gone, he returned home, hoping for normalcy. Despite his family's concern the next day, he avoided discussing it, only asking if Connie liked living in the suburbs. Even with her affirmation, he suggested moving back to the city. The memory of smashing the crystal ball haunted him. Days later, a police car arrived asking if Connie knew Paul Martel. Connie learned of Martel's disappearance, reported by his estranged wife. The police found her number on his desk, seeking leads. At dinner, Charlie mentioned the police visit, making Edward wary. Connie deflected, saying they were inquiring about a missing bookseller. Edward, aware, didn't press further. The next day, a gathering at Connie's felt like old times, but fate's judgment loomed. A week later, the police returned with news. Martel's body was found. They asked if Connie remembered seeing him, and she fabricated a location. They pressed Edward, not letting any clue slip. The police even asked if Connie had been to Martel's place. She denied it until they showed a parking ticket from weeks ago. Pretending to recall, she said she met a friend at a nearby cafe. The questioning left her flustered. Edward intervened, asking the police to stop pressuring Connie. They understood, leaving a card. Watching them leave, Connie couldn't calm down. Edward turned. To her, both knowing they couldn't return to the past. Days later, Connie found an envelope in Edward's laundry containing photos of her and Martel. Overwhelmed, she left the laundromat, returning home. Connie tried to act normal, but couldn't face Edward. When friends visited, she was distracted until one asked about a crystal ball. Her gaze lingered on another crystal ball, the one she gave Martel, now back home. Suspicious, she looked at Edward, who avoided her eyes. She realized the truth. That night, Edward stood in the dark living room. Connie cautiously approached, finally asking if he killed Martel. Edward's silence was answer enough. Connie, upset, demanded to know what he did. Edward turned, questioning her actions, claiming he did everything to protect their family. Edward finally unleashed his sorrow, anger, and confusion, tears flowing. He confessed. Sensing something, Charlie, who wet the bed, sought comfort from Connie. She reassured him of their love. As the weekend arrived, Connie reminisced over old photos, cherishing past happiness. She found a message from Edward in the crystal ball from when Charlie was born. Throwing away her photos with Martel, she wondered if things would be different had she taken a cab instead of going upstairs with him. But there's no regret medicine in history. Edward, holding the sorrowful Connie, expressed his intention to turn himself in. No matter how Connie tried to persuade him, because even if only the two of them knew, those memories would always exist, constantly reminding her of the sins committed. The car stopped at the police station, the entrance. They indulged in their final fantasies. They could immigrate to Mexico and live a life of anonymity, perhaps spending their days by the sea and eventually being buried together under the deep blue night sky. The car quietly parked in front of the police station, where a bright yellow light shone, as if guiding lost souls. What choice will Edward make this time? The film ends here, leaving the audience with a sigh. People often fantasize that if given another chance, they would make different choices. But if time could turn back, would Connie and Edward make the right decisions? The tragedy of fate is composed of countless small and imperceptible mistakes accumulated over time, and by the time they're noticed, it's too late to turn back. Perhaps this is the trickery of fate. Well, that's it for this video. See you next time.